Tommy Tumas Mace, then he loses his, for the most part, generally speaking, he loses all of his days. That's it. We all person becomes a mitzvah, he has to put the counter on hold. So the entire time he's a mitzvah, the kohen says to him, "Sorry, you are tamei vade." Not the time when the kohen says, "I'm not sure, hang on," what's called musgar. The muchlet, he stops the clock, and no matter how long he's in that state, his Nezirus is on pause. So 30 day Nezirus can become 30 years if he's sitting there for a long time in theory. Now, number three, if there's a mitzvah for mitzvah to shave, the mitzvah for Nazir to shave. A Nazir can shave in two different situations. Mitzvah for Nazir to shave whenever he finishes correctly. There's also mitzvah to shave and when he becomes tamei. And you can't kill two birds with one stone. You can't kill two birds with one stone. When you shave for one mitzvah, it can't be for the other one. You got to do it separately, right? Okay. So that's first and foremost. Good. So let's think over here a second. Let's say you have a group of 5 friends, and they all make a neder to be a Nazir for a year. Let's use the year. I'm using an example. Reuven keeps his Nezirus, he finishes the year, and he brings his Kabbalah Shalom Yisrael. Shimon becomes Tomei Tumas Mace towards the end of the year. He has to keep for 2 years. At the end of he has to keep for 2 years because the first year falls away when he loses it. Yeah, at the end of the yeah. And good. Levi is not Tomei Tumas Mace, except unfortunately he becomes a mitzvah. So let's say the whole year he says he's a state of Teras. When he finds at the end of the year, let's say that's when Teras leaves, he has to Eresh now start. He becomes a mitzvah for 2 years as well. Right. Yehuda was silent. Let's say he was a mitzvah the whole entire time. Levi became a mitzvah in the very beginning. Yeah, the whole entire time he's in mitzvah. At the end of a year, his Teras leaves. There's no time show. Teras can stay for the longest time.
Yeah, he's not healed.
Yeah, he speaks Lashon Hara the whole time. He did tshuva, whatever it is, and therefore, and then Teras finally leaves. Whenever it leaves, he finally then can start counting his year. So good. Yehuda,
we do count a couple of days before it became a mitzvah.
Let's say he became a mitzvah the day he became a Nazir, so he wouldn't count anything. Okay, good. Yeah, but in theory, yeah. And then let's say Yehuda was a mitzvah like Levi, except he also was Tomei Tumas Mace. So he, after he finishes his Teras, he's going to have to start now. He doesn't count the time that he was a mitzvah, obviously. So that now he was Tomei Tumas Mace. He has to also wait 7 days, count and have this produce sprinkled on him. After those 7 days, he can then start his year. Good. Now, Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar. Yisachar, he's going to be the subject of our parak for the most part, because he was a Nazir like his friends for a year, except he became Tumas Mace Misafik. He's not sure. He's also Mitzvah Misafik. So what's he going to do? Because remember, a Mitzvah is allowed to shave when he has to become, even while he's a Nazir, he has to shave his head and his beard. A Nazir just shaves his head. A Mitzvah shaves his entire body, at least anywhere there's a collection of hair. It's not like, let's say, his hair, his beard, his eyebrows, anywhere where there's visible collection of hair. And he could do that even while he's a Nazir, although Nazir now lets cut his hair, because as the Chalesa say. But if he's not for sure a Mitzvah, it's not for sure a mitzvah. So what does he do? Good. Perik Asiri Halach Aleph. Ein Adam Megaleach Tigla. Oh, and also, of course, each of these people, the Nazir who becomes Tamei has to bring special kabbanas. Nazir who finishes correctly brings special kabbanas, and the Mitzvah brings special kabbanas. But they're not identical. So bear that in mind. Good. A person is not allowed to shave once and say that he killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Now he took care of the mitzvah of shaving out a Nazir, whether it's mitzvah tumah or mitzvah finishing correctly, and mitzvah the mitzvah of being a mitzvah shaving his head when he finishes his purification process. Let's also remember briefly that a mitzvah, how does he become tahor? When he goes to the kohen says, good, the kutras is gone, he has to shave everything. A whole process where he sprinkles on him the water with the hyssop, with the azev, 2 birds, not karbonis. They aren't maybe heck, it's not karbonis birds. He has to shecht one, he sprinkles the water on him. Good. 7 days later, he has to shave everything again and then bring karbonis. Good. Okay. So number 1, a person cannot shave one shaving and therefore count for both mitzvahs of Nezirus and Tzeras. You can't do that. And now when you do have to shave mitzvah being a mitzvah, if it's a suffix mitzvah, now how is a person a suffix mitzvah? We'll learn about that hilchas Tzeras. Good, whatever the case is, he's a suffix mitzvah. That's not dechel Nezirus. Only the essay for sure dechel is say, but a suffix essay is not dechel is say. The fichan therefore, mishin nazir shana achas. Someone makes a nazir to be a Nezirus for 1 year. Let's take 1 year for example. It could be any 6 months, 2 years, 10 years. This entire time throughout this year, when he's trying to keep his mitzvah being mitzvah, he was a suffix. If he's his mitzvah being a nazir for that year, he was a suffix if he's a Mitzvah, in which case, if he was a Mitzvah, the time wouldn't count for him, and a suffix Tmei Meis, in which case the time wouldn't count for him either. For that matter, you could also say the same cases where he was a Mitzvah for the entire year. At the end of the year, he became Tamei to Mes, which Rambam says now, or he was a Suffix for the whole year, and at the end of the year, he was a Suffix. So he may be Mitzvah, maybe Tmei Meis, maybe both, maybe neither. Did his year fall away? Did it count for him? Maybe, maybe not. And maybe not in two different ways. What does he do? Now, the Rambam can tell us what he does, and then he's going to tell us why he does it. So what does he do? Here's what he does. At the end of that year, when he's maybe finishes the Nezirus, maybe finishes his year of Tumah, maybe finishes his year of Tzaras, maybe not, he counts 7 days after that year. In other words, the Tzaras is gone, and he's no he counts 7 days. And he has during those 7 days the sprinkling of the paraduma as he's supposed to. However, in the 7th day he doesn't shave as another whose tummy normally would, for reasons why we'll see soon. However, he's still, even though he shaved, he's shaving. And it's possible he was not Tamei Norma Mitzvah and therefore finishes Nezirus, but it's possible not, therefore he cannot drink wine yet. Or deliberately mitam himself to a mess, until we'll see after 4 years, for again the reasons why we'll see soon why that number is how it works out. However, after 2 years, he'll already be in a state where he can eat kachim. Because another could eat kachim, of course. He can eat korban pesach, let's say, and any other kabbanis. A Mitzvah cannot. He's Tamei. Again, because the reason why he's going to end up having to wait a total of 4 years so he can drink wine, but after 2 years already he can start eating kachim. That's because he's going to have to ultimately shave 4 shavings total. What are the 4? So Rambam is going to give him an order now, not necessarily that we don't know exactly. Each one of them has several possible purposes, but the ultimate 4 he has to do is because he needs to do for sure teglachas tahara. He ultimately, whenever he finishes his Nezirus, he has to shave like every Nazir has to, every kabbanis. Teglachas tumah, and if he was tamei, correct, misafik, right? Whenever he finishes that state of possible tumah, he has to shave until the fact that they've been tamei. Mitzvah shaves 2 times, right? Now, normally the break between the 2 shavings is 7 days. This guy's gonna have a bit more of a time. We'll see. Again, he is Safik Mitzvah. So, what are these 4 shavings? Why does he do them? Number halacha base. After the 1 year is over, and he does the first shaving. Of that shaving, instead of doing just his hair like a Nazir, he also includes his beard and his eyebrows like a Mitzvah is supposed to. Also, because it's a suffix, if I'm saying he's shaving his beard, it must be a katan. An adult can't shave his beard in a suffix. So I'm talking about a katan. That's the word. As a Mitzvah. Yeah, or if it's a woman, it's easier. No beard, obviously. But okay, good. So betara be'etz v'eres, and then he does the purification process with the hyssop and the cedar, which is part of him kishamatrim, and the bird that you shech the one, you dip it in the water, you sprinkle on him, and send the other bird away. Like the process of every mitzvah. So now, what exactly is the purpose of this shaving whole thing, right? What base are we trying to cover? If we know, if Hashem comes and says he's not a tamei, he's not a mitzvah, he's a regular nazir. This is a regular teglachas tahara of a Nezirus. Now, the fact he shaved his eyebrows. Good. In other words, right? Yeah, the fact he shaved his eyebrows, for example, is extra. But the fact he shaved his head is important. Now, he did this whole process with the birds and the hyssop. Whatever, it wasn't unnecessary, but it's not an avera. Good, that's one possibility. The other possibility is that, let's say he is a mitzvah. Hashem comes and says, leprosy. Yeah, correct. Tzaras, yeah.
But aren't there ways to identify if he is a mitzvah or not?
Well, so you're asking the case of why it's a suffix mitzvah. That's a question. Whatever. Let's say it's whatever the case is. There are such cases where it's suffix mitzvah. Okay. If Good. These are all kasha hilchas to mitzvah for hilchas teras. We'll learn about that later. If he's a mitzvah, let's say the first year he was a mitzvah. He wasn't tamei mesto. He was a mitzvah. Excuse me. Then in that case, Hashem knows that this is the first shaving of the mitzvah. What the mitzvah has to do. Now, when normally does the mitzvah do the second shaving? 7 days later. However, over here, he has to wait a full year, which is the sum total of his Nezirus nether. Then he has to do the second shaving of the theoretical shaving of a mitzvah. Why does he have to wait a whole year? He's unable to do the second shaving after 7 days. Maybe he's not a mitzvah. Maybe he's really just tamei meis. Therefore, if he's really just Tamei Mace, when he does the first shaving, he finishes his year of being Tamei Mace, starts his year of proper Nezirus. He's a Nazir in this second year. He can't shave. A Nazir can't take a haircut. This second year might be the year his clock is finally ticking for being a proper Nazir, and therefore you can't take a haircut misafik. Only for sure, let's say. So far we have the first shaving, which may be a proper shaving, ending his mitzvah year. It's also possible that he's only Tamei Mace, and this is the tumah that ends his process of being Tamei, allows him to start his proper timing of its ras. It's also possible he's not Tamei at all mitzvah tumas mes. He's simply a mitzvah, and therefore this first shaving is the shaving he has to do mitzvah finishing his ras. And the other possibility, so those are the three possibilities. Good. And in the event that he's taka Tamei Mace and mitzvah, it's also mitzvah his tzaras, because that's what you want to take care of first. You got to first take care of the tzaras problem, because until you take care of the tzaras problem and be able to eat kachim again and finishing with the tzaras, you can't shave mitzvah the tumah, because an usher can't bring his karbanis and shave for being tamei until he's tar mitzvah the dinim of tumadara. So as long as he's a mitzvah, he can't take care of his problem with tumas mess. Okay. Once he finishes the first two shavings, he definitely took care of the tzaras problem. He can now go eat kachim if it's pesach. Now he waits the third year, because remember, if he was taka mitzvah, he waits the third year, because if he was taka a mitzvah the first year, and the second year he was with. If he was taka mitzvah, so then now because he doesn't really finish the tzaras issue until the second year is over, and he shaves his second shaving with the karbanos, he hasn't been able to start the clock for his Nezirus yet. He has to start the clock only for the third year. So therefore, he waits the third year. Then he shaves a third shaving. What's the purpose of that? Maybe he was taka mitzvah the first year, and he wasn't a Tamei Mace. He was just a mitzvah. And the first year didn't count for him. It's the days when he is a definite mitzvah theoretically. But the second year doesn't count from either. It's one long 7-day period when he's waiting through the second shaving. Normally, a mitzvah does a second shaving 7 days later. He couldn't. So therefore, he only erished.
He couldn't because of suffix.
Because of suffix. If we knew for sure that he was a mitzvah, not Tamei Mace, we would have had him done the second shaving 7 days later. But we're not sure. So therefore, she has to wait the third year, and that third year might be the year where he's taka nazir. And all these times, if he goes and drinks wine on purpose, he can't give him malchus because it's all suffix. She has to shave a third shaving. Nezirus as Nezirus, that might be the glachas tara. It's very possible that the first two were for the first one was number one for Nezirus, number two was the second one for Nezirus. This one is the one that makes him Ois Nazir, the proper one. That's very possible. There's another possibility. Alternatively, maybe he was taka a mitzvah and Tamei Mace during the whole first year. And also, one shaving doesn't help for Nezirus and Utzarat and for Tzaras. Turns out the first shaving was the first for Tzaras. The second one was for Tzaras. Even though it was a year later, it was supposed to be 7 days. It was late for a year. The third one, again, the second one couldn't count for Mitzad being a Nasa Tamei. One shaving doesn't cover both bases. Yeah, so the third one was for the fact that he was Tamei and took care of the problem of being a Nasa Tamei and Kapara for that. Then and none of these 3 years count towards his being a Nazir, because the third one, if that was the Gachas Tumah, if Taka he was a Nazir and a Tamei and a Mitzvah, then the third year was his Yemei Tumah, and he didn't finish his shaving and kapara for being a Nazir Tamei till the end of the third year, so the clock hasn't started yet. It didn't start during the first 2 years Mitzad Tzaras. You couldn't start in the third year Mitzad being a Nazir Tamei. Maybe he wasn't Tamei Mitzad to Mitzad because he had Paradumas better than him, but he didn't bring his kapara yet, so he couldn't start the clock yet. So only after the third year ends and he shaves and brings the karbanos, which are theoretically the karbanos that he brings for being a Nazir, we can Tamei, then can he start the clock. He has to wait a fourth year. Nezirus as a Nazir, and do a fourth shaving, and that is the fourth shaving that would the only possibility it is for is the possibility that he is a Nazir Tahar. Yeah. So all these cases, the hair is also Bahanami Safek because the Nazir's hair is also Bahana. So it might be each one of these years might be the year he was properly a Nazir, and therefore it doesn't be Sheshar Nazir started mutar bahana, because the hair of a Nazir became tzaras, he has a mitzvah, is mutar bahana. Therefore, if he was a Nazir as a mitzvah, you're allowed to benefit from the hair, but however way you could, but we don't know for sure. Therefore, it's also bahana misafik. So it comes out that the first shaving he does could be the one makes him that he's finishing his Nezirus properly. It's also possible that it's the one that he's doing kapara for coming to mace, or it's possible it's the first shaving as a mitzvah. The second shaving might be in the event that he was Tamei Mace, then the second shaving is the one which is properly as a Mitzvah. But if he's not a Tamei Mace, if he's just a Mitzvah, then the second one is the one which is for the second of Tzeras. If he's a Tamei, and if he's a Tamei Mace and a Mitzvah, then that's also true as well. The first one is for a Mitzvah, the second one is for a Mitzvah. But in the event that he was a Mitzvah who's not Tamei Mace, the third shaving is the proper one. If he was a Mitzvah and a Tamei Mace, the third shaving is for being another Tamei, and the fourth one is then the proper one.
And he also cannot deal with the stuma any earlier than a year.
No, can't. Right.
Why? Because his Nezirus is for a full year.
Yeah. Now that's this guy was a year. What if he did for Esher Shanim? Nezirus v'hayas safek t'seira, milday safek tum b'seif, and the same concept, and what's the word? The same algorithm. And he had a safek tum at the end of the 10 years. Comes out, one can't do for 40 years. He'll do the same 4 shavings. One at the end of each 10 years. The first one might be for Tzeras. Of course, it also might be for his becoming Tamei, or it might be for him finishing his 10 years in Nezirus. The second one, the second one is because he might be the second shaving of a Mitzvah. Of course, it also might be the proper shaving as a Nazir. The third one is because maybe he's Tamei mitzad tuma, or of course it also could be the proper one for finishing his Nezirus in the event he was a mitzvah, but not Tamei. The fourth one, because maybe the first 3 didn't count, because maybe the first 2 were for Tzeras, maybe the third one was for Tamei Meis, and the fourth one is really the proper one. So that's the same principle. Okay, that took a lot faster than I thought. So now that's as far as shaving. Now each time he shaves, he brings kabbanas. What are the kabbanas that a Nazir has to? Let's remember this. So let's keep it simple. A Metzora, when he does the second shaving, he brings 2 kabbanas. Let's keep it simple. Let's say he's poor. If he's poor, then the kabbanas that the Metzora brings are identical. So if he's poor though, so then the kabbanas a Metzora brings is identical to the kabbanas that a Nazir Tamei brings, which means because they both have to bring a asham keves la asham, a sheep for an asham, that's identical. They have to bring an oila and a chatas. Now, if the Metzora is poor, he can bring a bird for the oila and a bird for the chatas, which is what a Nazir Tamei always brings, a bird for chatas. If he's a rich Nazir, he has to bring a sheep for the chatas and for the oila. So if he's poor, though, it's identical. A Nazir Tahar. Yeah, the asham always has to be a him. The chatas and the chatas and oila, that fluctuates for Metzora, but not for a Nazir Tamei. Now, a Nazir Tahar is very different. First of all, he does not bring an asham at all. Second of all, he does bring a shlamim for an ayil, and he also brings a chatas and an oila, but they have to be behemoths. There's no alternative for the Nazir Tahar. Good. Also, we'll see, it turns out, according to the Rambam, that the oila that a Nazir Tahar brings and the oila that a Metzora brings actually can be brought even before he finishes. You can kind of bring it in advance, turns out. But okay, fine. And also, the Metzora, in order to finish his kapara up, he didn't eat kachin, he has to bring the chatas baker, the oil and the asham and ma'akiv. Halacha dal. So this is, now we know the shavings, but what kabbanas does this guy bring along each time he shaves? In case, maybe the kabbanas, so how does he bring his kabbanas? Again, halacha dal, he says what? Halacha he says why? Im haya ashat, he was wealthy, in which case he has to bring, you cannot bring a chatas for Suffolk. I can bring an oilam for Suffolk. I can say, am I chayv oilam? I'm not sure. If I'm chayv an oilam, because I forgot to say Krishma in the morning for the mitzvah to say, here's my oilam. If not, here's my donation. An oilam you could bring voluntarily. A chatas, you can't do that. A chatas, if you could. A bird chatas can be brought voluntarily. And in Hilchos Kabbalah, we'll explain why. No, you can't bring asham to the chatas. No.
You can't bring asham just in case.
No, asham cannot be brought voluntarily either. Yeah. So no. So therefore, the only carbon chatas he can be brought voluntarily is a chatas oif. So if he was a case in has brings kabbanas. If he was wealthy, if he was poor, it's fine. He brings birds. He has to make himself poor by riding over everything he owns to somebody else. Find somebody who will not kick you out of your house, but write everything over to him. So now he's poor. Because if he's wealthy and he tries to bring a carbon ani, which is birds, doesn't count. Then he brings a chatas oif, a bird chatas. A excuse me, oila behema.
No, that made a that it,
Yeah.
As you said before, is brought out suffix,
Right.
as opposed to chatas behema, which is not.
Right, V'elas behema, and he brings V'elas behema because again, maybe he is a proper nazir. The glachas are shown by the first shaving. We'll see why he did. But the glachas are shown in Vishnia. So again, the first 3 shavings, what does he bring along with him? A chatas oif and the V'elas behema. What about the other kabbanas? We'll see soon. Because the suffix, the kohen does not eat the chatas oif. Normally he eats the chatas oif. In this case, he would not do that. Maybe teglachas revius. Carbon nazir tahar, and the 4th shaving he brings the carbon of her tahar nazir, which is shalish behemoth, 3 behemoths, the chatas, and erla, and the shlamim. As we said. Now, why and what exactly is the chesed for these type of kabbanas? Halachah shalish chatayos ha'oif shemevi b'shalish tiglachos. The 3 chatas ha'oif that he brings the first 3 times he shaves. Chatas the first chatas is the savuk tamase. It's because maybe he is tamei mitzad being a tamei mace. Maybe he's just a tamei mace. And therefore he's not a mitzera, and therefore he's chayiv to bring a chatas oif. That's another mitzera to bring a chatas oif. And again, the ikka kapar of a nazir is a chatas. We'll see. So he brings a chatas mitzad that. Shniya, the second one he brings the suffix tzarate, because maybe the second one is the mitzera brings the karbonis that he brings after his second shaving, which is at the second year. So the second shaving year, he brings the chatas ha'oif because maybe he's a nazir who is, maybe he was a mitzayda, excuse me. And therefore he has to bring a chatas ha'oif, like a poor mitzayda. Remember he's poor over here. She'ei mitzayda maybe carbon achat lachashniya, because the mitzayda only brings the karbonis after the second shaving. So because of the possibility of the first shaving, is for being a tamei, he brings the chatas ha'oif. Then, because of the possibility of the first shaving, he's not tamei, it's really mitzad being a mitzayda, he wouldn't bring a carbon then. He would bring it after the second shaving as a mitzvah, which is what he does. He brings another chatas ha'oif after the second shaving. Again, it's possible that the first 2 were from mitzvah, and the third one is only taking care of his problem of tumas mes. So he brings a chatas ha'oif then. Again, right? So the third chatas by the third shaving is for maybe it's for the possibility that this shaving is the one that takes shevet memes. Because again, you can't say, well, either way he covered it with the second haircut. No, you cannot do one shaving for a nazir and mitzvah together. And also it's possible. Another possibility is maybe he was both a tmemes and a mitzvah. In which case the first 2 shavings are for this teras, and the third shaving is for the fact that it's tmemes. And therefore, the reason why he has to bring a chatas ha'oif, the third shaving, is because maybe that's the one that he's taking care of the problem of tmemes. The reason why he can't bring chatas behema, the problem is no, yes, but also another problem. Bring the chatas behema, even if he's wealthy, will only help him if he's a mitzvah. It doesn't have the possibility of him being a nazir tamei. A nazir tamei has to bring an oif, even if he's a millionaire. So he has to dafka bring an oif. Halacha vav shalosh behema. Now the 3 oilers that come along with these karbanas, each time brings an oila. And the first one he makes a tanya, he says, Im tahar ani, if I am tahar and the first shaving is my proper Nezirus, zumichavasi, this is the one I have to bring. So good, here it is. Im tamei ani, if I'm tamei, how are you going to do it? Then it's a voluntary oila. So it's an oila, so it's a nidava. By saying the second and third, each one, remember the second and third, each one is possible. The second and third, so each one, the first, second, third, and fourth, each one is possible that this is the shaving, he's doing it properly, finishing his Nezirus. So therefore, he says, if this is for my Nezirus, here's my Eilis Behema. And if it's not finishing my Nezirus, if I have to make a different kind of oil, like an oil, because I'm a mitzvah, I'm temes, then it's not for my Nezirus. It's still a donation to the base of English. Good. Zayin. Maybe another, maybe carbon tahara b'tachas is the 4th time he shaves, he brings all the karbanas and another bring. He brings the karbanas and another brings for his tar. Chatas Elon Shasham, very master. Excuse me. He says, and he makes a condition. Im tamei, if I was tamei, for the first year of Tmei Meis, Oila Rishon on the Dava, then the first Oila I brought was just a donation. V'zu chayv, and this is my obligation. V'muchot ha'yisi, if I was in Mitzayra and not at Tmei Meis, Rishon chayv Mitzayra, the first one, meaning by the second shaving, right? Because the first shaving in Mitzayra doesn't help you, right? So the one by the second shaving is Machiv from Mitzayra. V'zu chayv Nezirus, and this one I'm bringing now is Mitzad finishing my Nezirus. No, so he means the very first one. The very first one was for my. So again, if I was for sure to make a mitzvah, the very first carbon was for my obligation as a mitzvah. So you can't bring the mitzvah can't bring the carbon till the second shaving. The first one was the first shaving. This is the die that Rambam holds that a mitzvah can bring the oila post dated in advance. So the very first one was for predated, right? I mean, it was What's the you can prepay. V'zu chayvas Nezirus, and so the first one was for my being mitzvah, was in advance. This fourth one is my obligation finishing my Nezirus. The middle two, which are necessary, they were stam a donation. However, if I was both a mitzvah and tumas meis, so then oila harishayin chayva. The first oila was an obligation. Mitzad being a mitzvah. The second one is also a possible obligation. In other words, one of the two, basically what that means is that one of those two is the obligation for the mitzvah. He says, achas l'chayvus mitzvah, one for the mitzvah, achas l'chayvus Nezirus, and one for the obligation to bring mitzvah nazir who becomes tahar. Right? The shlish is revius davar, the third and the fourth and the davar. V'ashar carbon terasi, and the other carbonas I'm bringing now are for the other carbonas that have to be mitzvah being tahar, which is shlomim and chatas. If I was both Tameh and a Mitzvah, then the very first one was for the Mitzvah. The second and third were donations. This is the carbon I bring finishing correctly. So that's how it comes out in terms of the whole how you cheshbon out the different carbonas for the possible shavings. That's as far as the chatas goes. Because why is it so important in the chatas? Because the chatas is ma'akiv. The carbon asham that the nazir brings when he, that a nazir brings an asham when he becomes tameh, or that a mitzvah brings when he finishes becoming, the nazir brings when he to correct his tumah, the kapara, or that a mitzvah brings when he finishes his tumah of tzeras. They're not ma'akiv b'di'eved when it comes to shaving for the nazir becoming tameh or for tzeras. In Tzeir, it turns out, if he's for sure Mitzvah, let's say, and he was never tummy to miss mace, so in that case, if he's just a Mitzvah, not to mace, he made himself tar with the birds the first time he shaved with the hyssop and the aziv and all those things, right? And the chatas is the proper chatas. However, should not be because it's a suffix. And the oilas behema, which he brings, which that's not, again, because I'm talking about a nazir, a mitzvah, who made himself poor or is poor, he wouldn't bring a oila, which is a behema. He'd bring dafka a bird. So this oilas behema he brought is the oila which he brings mitzad finishing his Nezirus correctly. So he should be shaving on a oilas behema, which a nazir has to do when he finishes properly. If he is a tmei meis, but not a mitzvah, the oilas behema, which is not necessary. Because again, a nazir who becomes tameh brings an oif for an oila, not a behema. This behema is just a donation. What if he's not a mitzvah, but is it tmei? I'm sorry, so I'll go back a line. That's if he's a mitzvah and a tmei, then the same thing. Then he the oilas behema isn't a dava because saya mitzvah. Who's Saya Mitzvah, Saya Nazir Tameh, don't bring an oila for a behema. If he's poor as a Mitzvah, brings an oif. So therefore, the behema is a dava. What if he's not a Mitzvah, but he only is Tmeis? So the chatas oif carbon nazir shnitma. The chatas oif is what a nazir tameh is supposed to do. He has to bring a chatas oif, a bird that's a chatas. And the oila, which he does not have to bring, that's just amin dava. But a heavy carbon tar b'achrina, and ultimately, and the last time he's going to make sure to bring the. So he brought all the karbanis, and the fourth time he's going to bring all the karbanis basically of tahara. So ultimately, he have you work it out. He brought the karbanis he has to, the primary karbanis. He made it Tmei later Mitzvah. What if the truth is he's not a Tmei or Mitzvah? Then in the first shave, when he brings the Elas Behema, that's the Chi of Mitzad shaving, Mitzad finishing his Nezirus. The Chadas Ha'ev Habal Safek, and the Chadas Ha'ev, which is unnecessary, is Taka unnecessary. It's not eaten, so that's Taka discounted. But we're bringing Mitzad Safek only, and because we don't know for sure, right? Okay. Now, the Rambam, we said before that all these shavings he does, we said l'chayda, it can't be done in Misafik because you now shave your beard or do akofas to call you paste Misafik. And Lachatesi clarifies. What is it? When did we say that he shaves the 4 shavings? Kishahaya katan isha. If he's a child or an isha. A man cannot shave Misafik. He can't shave either of these Misafik. Shema tarhu v'nimsad makif pas reisha makif mitzvah. Maybe he's a mitzvah. Maybe he's not mitzvah, and he's not tamei, and he comes out. He's cutting his payas, not for a mitzvah. Now I'm just mentioning the beard, the chayra. I'm not sure why, because another doesn't cut his beard, but mitzvah does. I can put him good. The the same shad. Therefore, no, a nazir only cuts his hair. Right, that's what the Chazal doesn't mention the beard, because if he's shaving mitzad, yeah, because he's talking about the nazir tamei. Thank you. If it's a suffix. If he became tamei, he can't cut the hair on his head because then if he's cutting off his payas, he's doing aveda. Right? He can only do that if he's tamei for sure. Same thing is with the mitzvah, and obviously the problem is also the beard because the mitzvah cuts his beard, and also he can't do misafik. Vichin therefore.
Tamei and mitzvah are allowed should be cutting their beard.
Another tamei only cuts his hair. Only cuts his hair.
No.
A mitzvah cuts his whole entire body. Shaves his whole entire body. Another tamei.
Oh,
Just his hair on his head, like another Torah. Therefore, I said Mitzvah shaves his entire body. Really, just the large collections of hairs, according to most poskim. I think that's the most. Therefore, he only shaves the final shaving at the end of the 4th year when we know for sure he has to. Because even though he's not shaving, if he's an adult male for bar mitzvah, he's not going to do it. Everything else, the kabbalah he does do, it still doesn't prevent him from continuing the process of Nezirus. It's just a mitzvah that he's missing out, and because of suffix, you don't say suffix essay. Yud. What if this guy? Let's make it a little simpler. He became a mitzvah for sure, but v'nitma b'suffix. Oh, that's so simple. Okay, but he came coming to misafik. Right. So that part, the tzuras part is avada. Okay, so what does he do? So he's for sure mitzvah. He has to do first, of course, the process of at the end of the 1st year. Right. Actually, when at the end of the year, let's say, that's when the kohen looks and says, "Okay, you're fine." So he does the sprinkle on the 3rd and 7th day, and he does the tiglachas tuma. Because even though he's a suffix tamei, because again over here, one second. Yeah, sorry, 1 second. Yeah. After he finishes that year, when the year is for sure over. In other words, let's say the case over here is when he became mitzvah during the year. But the point is that whenever he finishes, if he becomes tamei, he's mitzvah for a year. He became tamei misafik in the middle of the year. Whenever the kohen says to him, "Okay, you're fine. Now your trust is no longer gone." Now he can go and shave the shaving tlachas tuma because he couldn't do it while he was a mitzvah because the suffix. So therefore, now that he finishes being a mitzvah, he can now go and shave the shaving of tuma. Why? When this is kula, he has to start counting his whole Nezirus. Yeah. So there's a reason why he can't shave the tlachas tuma while he's a mitzvah. I forgot the reason why. Okay, that's the what he can't do both. So he has to wait till he becomes tar mitzvah. Then when he finishes being a mitzvah, he can get speaking about the paraduma because he might be Thomas Mace. And then shave the shaving of pasta being Tommy Thomas Mace and start counting his Nezirus because he for sure lost his year because he was a mitzvah. That's for sure. Now he has to start doing that. Because the first days fell away. Mitzad the suffix tuma. Yeah. Okay. So let's start looking at it again. I'm sorry. Not a case like that he was necessarily tummy for an entire year. Nazir should start of adim into misafik. He's a regular case of Nezirus. Let's say he's talking for a year, but for a part of that year he became a mitzvah, and then he became also tummy to misafik. Okay, to the way it So what does he do? How does he correct himself over here? Because remember, to do what he has to do as Nezirus, we know when he finishes the process of tzaras, he has to have two shavings, and then he starts counting again. The fact he was telling this suffix, he can't necessarily shave because that's only a suffix. So after he finishes the after he finishes, he heals from his tzaras. He can get speaking about the paraduma and then shave the shaving of the fact he might be tummy tumas mess. Again, this is talking about after he finishes the days of his Nezirus. So he has to first take care of the fact that he has to finish his Nezirus, cover those bases, and then consider the possibility that he didn't really finish his Nezirus because he's tummy tumas suffix. So then he starts counting another zeros. So the first days fell away because he became Tamei Misafik. So because of the possibility he did not become Tamei, he has to finish his Nezirus. You can't shave while you're Nazir. Finish that time. Then shave because you might become Tamei, and because the possibility he did become Tamei, now start counting a new Nezirus, and then being the carbon Torah, and then you can go on afterwards. After he finishes the second year, carbon tzaras, and then he finishes the tzaras, he eats a kachim as well.
Totally another 3 years.
2 years in this case. 2 years in this case. Yeah, let's see. Mitzvah the first. Yeah. What time is Ma'ariv? Oh, okay. So we'll finish the Perek afterwards. Okay.
You didn't have to leave.
Okay.
Pray.
Okay.